You know what that means. It's time for Explain and Verify. Samgele Masego is on standby. Samgele, what are you looking at?
Indeed, Bungiwe, the annual growth rate measures in the country's economic performance over the year, shaped by factors like inflation, trade and policy. In South Africa, growth rose after democracy as the country opened up to the global trade, attracting new investments and threatening its democratic institutions. But since then, growth has slowed down significantly. Let's look down at the past 15 years, especially considering that the goal of the National Development Plan is an average growth of 5.4% in the years between 2011 going to 2030. South Africa is trading behind not only in its BRICS formation counterparts, but also amongst other emerging economies. Looking at the average annual growth rate, particularly looking at these years, 1.4% from 1980 to 1993. Going towards the democratic dispensation, 1994 going to 2010, that was a growth rate of 3.2% of the economy. Then you come to 2010 to 2025. Now, there is a growth rate of about 1.1% Bungiwe, basically showing the sluggish economy that has evidently failed to create jobs and has basically left a number of South Africans impoverished, Bungiwe.
And of course, Samgele, there's been a lot of factors that have contributed towards this. And you think about, for example, issues of crime, corruption, etc.
When you look at those issues, crime and corruption, load shedding, low investor confidence, congested ports, and policy uncertainty have stacked the odds against South Africa attaining its NDP goal. Additionally, unemployment is high at 33.2%, affecting black women and youth at most, while the Reserve Bank has cut its 2025 growth forecast from 1.7% to 1.2%. Despite this, the ANC affirms its commitment to economic growth strategy with focuses on broad-based black economic empowerment, employment equity, and land expropriation without compensation. The DA consistently opposes these policies, which is explained by DA leader John Steenhuisen. Let's just basically look at the GDP versus emerging markets over the years. These are the stats of emerging markets. You look at Brazil. This is 2023, 2024, and a long average between the years of 2010 to 2019. But these are the countries that are within the BRICS formations: Brazil, Russia, China, India. And look at South Africa's economic growth rate. It is sitting at rock bottom as compared to these other BRICS formations. For instance, Bungiwe, if you also go to the recent comments of former President Mbeki when he spoke today, in that letter he issued of not attending the national dialogue, he spoke of a tale of two countries in one. A country that is white and a country that is black. And a country that is black is the one that is largely dominated in those stats of 33.2% of those people who are unemployed, who are black, women, and in the main also who are youth. But let's listen to DA leader John Steenhuisen on what he has to say in opposing these particular three policies of the African National Congress of land expropriation with nil compensation, which is currently in court. They believe is hampering economic growth within the country, and also the issue of the employment equity. They've taken the Employment Equity Act to court that is currently led by Minister Makhosazana Meth and Jomo Sibiya as the Deputy Minister, and ultimately also opposing broad-based black economic empowerment with that fight with the Starlink of Elon Musk. Let's listen to what DA leader John Steenhuisen had to say during the week.
BBEE and the racial quotas that go along with it have failed. Over the last decade, black unemployment has grown and black household income has fallen dramatically. These policies have failed, and together with expropriation without compensation, creates an environment that deters investment, that hobbles growth and job creation, and ensures that the majority of South Africans remain locked out of opportunity in this country.
While the Democratic Alliance supports transformation, it calls for prioritizing the energy crisis, boosting business for job creation, tackling crime, reforming public spending, upgrading infrastructure and improving local government. In the response of the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula to journalists this week, he categorically stated that they will not be coerced into reversing its progressive economic transformative agenda, and the DA is out of touch with the aspirations of the South African people. Bongiwa, that just speaks directly to that tussle within the government of national unity, of the economic trajectory of the country. John Steenhuisen, speaking during the course of the week, he said that they, as the DA, cannot take every policy issue within the government of national unity. Thus, the African National Congress as well, with their 40%, with the DA's 20%, there must be some sort of give and take when it comes to the economic trajectory of the country. For instance, if you look at the issue of the freight rail industry of the country, particularly on Transnet, the president has categorically stated that you need to bring in private sector players in order to bring about those private sector players who will operate those locomotives, have rail that is owned by Transnet, and be able to increase South Africa's exports to the international markets, particularly of South Africa's raw minerals in the Northwest Province, in Northern Cape, in Northwest, in Mpumalanga, and other parts of the country such as Gauteng and the Free State Province, where you've got an abundance of mineral resources like your iron ore, your platinum, that needs to be exported out of the country. For instance, Transnet has fallen flat off its financial obligations year in and year out when it comes to the company Kumba Iron Ore to export the iron ore out of the country. They've not been able to meet the demand of Kumba Iron Ore and other industry players within that particular mining industry within the various parts of the country that need to have these products exported out of the country. Hence, these are public-private partnerships that are being brought about in the cessation of some of South Africa's freight rail industry that has been brought by the government of national unity, the African National Congress, and with the Democratic Alliance as well.
And it'll be interesting, of course, because when you think about what Fikile Mbalula also says, he speaks vehemently about the fact that the ANC is protecting of course, transformation and is not going to be regressing when it comes to its policies.
They're saying that they're not going to regress on these particular transformative policies, and they're not going to be coerced by the United States of America to move away from these transformative policies, because they are ultimately meant to transform South Africa that we live in today, which is described as a tale of two countries in one. A country of the whites who are in control of the economic aspect of the country, and the black majority who are downtrodden, who are subjected by the triple challenges of poverty, inequality, and underdevelopment. And those are some of the battle lines that you are finding within the government of national unity between the ANC and the Democratic Alliance.
And especially because when you think about it, Samgele, is the fact that if you look back at South Africa, I mean, they've ran the country, and it would be an indictment on them to say that we still talk about the tale of two countries even 30 plus years on. And I suppose it speaks quite a lot about economic transformation that is also needed in South Africa. And there's a lot still to talk about as far as the nuances are concerned, especially when you take it back to the Freedom Charter.
It's going to be very interesting, particularly noting that they are not moving in any of these particular points. Particularly, some of the most transformative policies have been signed under this particular administration of a government of national unity, such as expropriation with nil compensation, and also the other transformative policies that the president has put into law, such as the Employment Equity Act. But also, if you look at some of the issues that are there within the country, when you look at what the role of state-owned enterprises and what they're meant to do, state-owned enterprises are meant to play a developmental agenda, to the nation. That is the thrust of when these state-owned enterprises were brought together to play that developmental role in order to help Esbongile, who's got a civil engineering degree, who's got a mechanical engineering degree, who's able to go in work at PRASA, go in work at Transnet, go in work at Eskom. But let's just listen to the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Fikile Mbalula, on what he had to say about these transformative laws that they are not willing to budge on and to neglect.
There are reckless calls for deregulation and abandonment of broad-based black economic empowerment, are a direct affront to the principles of the Freedom Charter, which demand that the people shall share in the country's wealth.
While Bongiwe, amongst other plans to boost the economy, government announced that it will improve port and rail capacity through a private sector partnership framework while restructuring Eskom into generation, distribution, and also generation, and bringing independent power producers to resolve the energy crisis. Those are some of the key economic matters South Africa needs to stand on in order to improve its economic growth and improve the numbers and have policy certainty in order to draw investors within the country. The issue of energy security, the prioritization of these state-owned enterprises, and its continuation to play a developmental agenda will be one of the focal points that will be deliberated upon in this now cast in doubt national dialogue or national convention that is taking place tomorrow. But one thing is for sure, it is definitely a tale of two countries in one. One that is white and one that is black, with very little those who are black having been afforded the opportunities as their white counterparts.
Samila Masego, that is how we wrap up this edition of Explain and Verify. He'll be back with you same time next week.